when I listened to you guys, that was the end of the Lloyd Carr era. That was an exciting time, but it was a painful time too, because they just instituted the BCS. And if you recall, I think from 99 to 2006, 2007, when he left, he had like 3 teams that were like right there, and they always found a way to have 1 or 2 losses that kept them out of those top 2 spots. Do you feel like, what are your thoughts on those last Lloyd Carr years? Was he run? Because I made a video when I first started the channel saying, why was Lloyd Carr run out of town? It kind of felt that way, but it also, there was some bad luck too, because Jim Tressel showed up and Troy Smith showed up. But what, from the media, from a media perspective, what did you think about those last years?
Yeah, well, I think that final year is the best spot to start with talking about Lloyd Carr, to go back, because we know that he won the national championship in '97. But in 2006, Michigan was undefeated. They played the game of the century against Ohio State down in Columbus. That was a pretty good game. Sean Crable had a late hit in that game. Ohio State ended up winning it. So, Michigan had a chance there. But the next year, they were a top 5 program, and they lost to Appalachian State. And after that, they got humiliated by Oregon, and then that was it, really, for Lloyd Carr. Lloyd Carr was not going to return after that, and he was not going to be able to pick his successor. And, his days were just numbered there in Ann Arbor after those first 2 losses. Appy State was, it's still the biggest loss in college football history. Talk to anybody, they're going to bring that up. If they have another name, they'll bring up Michigan pretty quick. And, so being around Ann Arbor, of course, that was, and that still is, the biggest upset. So after those 2 losses, they went on, and then, the knock against Lloyd Carr is that he was just too conservative, and, he played it too tight. And then he went in against Tim Tebow, one of the greatest college football players ever, and Urban Meyer, and he said, I think this is how he approached it, to hell with it. You guys think I'm conservative? We're going to throw the kitchen sink at him. And they went out there and they played this magnificent game. And they opened things up. They were throwing the ball away, and everybody's like, damn, if you'd have done that earlier, you'd still be around, Lloyd. Yeah. He had a couple years when Henson, so I don't know, what would that have been, 2000, where Henson, he had missed the first few games of the season, but then, Michigan was, they were stacked. They had a great offense. David Terrell, Drew Henson, Anthony Thomas. This was a championship type offense that Michigan had, and they only lost a couple games. One was to Drew Brees by a couple points in West Lafayette, back and forth. They could have easily won that game. Michigan put up over 30 points with Henson. And then the only other game they lost was at Northwestern. Like 53, 51.
Yep.
And Anthony Thomas was one of the great Michigan running backs of all time in that game. Yeah, and he fumbled it, but it was a phantom fumble by him. He just dropped it. Like, he had it, and then he just started going, and then the ball just fell out. Now, that's how close they were to putting together another real special season. Of course, when you're giving that many points up, the defense was a question there for her. They couldn't match up. We know that. You got to have both sides of the ball. You just can't have one, and that was one of the issues there in 2000. And in 2006, they came back with Hart and Henne, and they had a pretty good team there. That was close to being a championship type team, but then 2007 really wrecked it for them.
Yeah.